US President Donald Trump has said he could meet Russian President Vladimir Putin very soon. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the specifics of the talks, including the makeup of the Russian delegation, had not yet been finalized. Rubio has also assured any real negotiations will have Ukrainian involvement. On the other hand, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that Russia is only pushing for a ceasefire to replenish its battle-stricken forces for future attacks. He also stated that Vladimir Putin should never be trusted. Ambassador Suresh Goel, I wanted to come to you first. What do you think about this meeting between... Apologies, I wanted to move to you, Ross Feingold, and talk about this potential meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. It's supposed to be coming soon, is that right?
And the thing to keep in mind here is that President Trump, during the election campaign over the course of 2024, he said he would bring peace on the first day. Now, obviously, that didn't happen, but it certainly means that he's going to continue to pursue it. So to be fair to President Trump, he's simply making good on a campaign promise of his. Obviously, there's some concern among European allies of the United States and also concern among Ukraine, with the Ukraine president and government, that Trump and Putin will make a deal without consulting these other key stakeholders. Secretary of State Rubio has tried to make it clear that these other stakeholders, like Europeans, like Ukraine, will be consulted, and I think we should take Secretary of State Rubio at his word, but it's also probably still early days in this process. We don't even have, as you said, we don't even have a firm makeup of the delegations or when these meetings are actually going to occur. So there's still a lot more work to be done, but the key thing here, again, I think, is that President Trump is following through on his campaign promise.
Andrew, I wanted to come to you next. President Zelensky claims that Russia only wants a ceasefire to regroup for future attacks. How does Moscow respond to that accusation?
Moscow say that it's not interesting to make future attack against Ukraine, but if the Russian Federation can complete their objective in the special military operation. So that means that Moscow refused any agreement that can permit to Ukraine joining the NATO and to have military capabilities for be dangerous for Russian Federation. And of course, Moscow continued to talk about the denazification of Ukrainian policy and Ukrainian politicians, because from the Russian side, from the Russian perspective, it's very, very bad for their historical memory that the Western media give space for Ukrainian soldiers that have neo-Nazis or neo-fascist patch or symbols in their uniform. And this is a very important point for them.
Ross Feingold, originally, obviously, it was believed that Europe would not be associated with these peace negotiations whatsoever. Secretary Rubio has backtracked on that and stated that the real negotiations will include Ukraine and Europe. Do you think that this will do you think that this will eventually happen once these initial peace talks are done in Saudi Arabia with Trump and Putin?
We should take Secretary Rubio at his word, and if he says the Europeans are going to be involved, I think we have to be fair to Secretary Rubio and expect him to carry through on that commitment. And there's also another very important element to this, which is there going to be a pan-European peacekeeping force that's deployed along the front line between Russia and Ukraine? So if that's going to become a reality, and there's been a lot of talk about that in recent days, if there is going to be a pan-European peacekeeping force that is deployed to the front, then of course the Europeans are going to have to be consulted about this, hopefully earlier rather than later, and they're going to have to start making the commitment, whether that's military resources or financial resources. They're going to have to start making that commitment, because if there is a multinational peacekeeping force, it's going to be composed of Europeans. The likelihood that the United States will contribute soldiers to an on-the-ground peacekeeping force is probably very low at the moment. And President Trump is probably not supportive of that. And President Trump is going to say, hey, to the European countries, hey, all of you, this is in Europe. You want to keep the peace, you should deploy your own militaries to the front line.
Andrea, my final question. If Europe and Ukraine are going to be included in these so-called real negotiations, what role does Russia believe that they should play?
Well, in my opinion, Ukraine and the European Union cannot have a separate negotiation. The real peace agreement, if we will see a peace agreement, will be between the US, the Russian Federation, and Ukraine. But Ukraine is a passive actor in this process, unfortunately, and the European Union is completely excluded from this process, because the new administration of the United States is thinking that the European Union is not maybe so important for take a part in the negotiation, or their role is so marginal in the help in the military and economic help to Ukraine. We need to think that the US helped Ukraine with more than $500 billions of dollars. That is a gigant amount of money, and of course Europe alone cannot support Ukraine for an amount of this money. And maybe for this reason, the new presidential administration of Washington chose to have to exclude the European Union from the negotiation. But it's important also to say that Moscow will not accept any closing of the conflict. They will accept only a peace agreement that can be satisfying for them. And that means that in this peace agreement, Ukraine needs to accept the withdrawal of the armed force from every region that Moscow reclaimed as Russian territory, and the demilitarization of Ukrainian state.
Andrea Lucidi and Ross Feingold, thank you very much for joining us.